Have you ever peeked at a medical bill and seen that string of letters and numbers, and it feels like you're trying to read a secret language? Well, today, we're going to decode one of the most fascinating and most human parts of your medical records. Right, usually when you think medical code, you're probably thinking about a diagnosis, right? Something like the flu or a sprained ankle. But what if I told you a massive category of these codes has absolutely nothing to do with being sick at all?
That's the thing. These codes don't actually diagnose a disease. Instead, they provide the context. They paint the picture. They tell the story of why you're at the doctor's office, what your background is, and even what's going on in your everyday life that could be affecting your health.
Okay, so let's give them a name. We're talking about Z-codes. Now, the official definition is factors influencing health status and contact with health services. I know, that's a bit of a mouthful, but basically they answer the question, why is this person interacting with the healthcare system if they don't have a specific active illness right now? So, to really see how this all works, let's follow a hypothetical patient on their journey. We're going to see how these Z-codes pop up in the real world, and it pretty much always starts with something simple, a routine visit. Okay, so picture this. Our patient feels totally fine. No symptoms, no complaints, no reason at all to think anything's wrong. They're just being proactive and going in for a routine screening. So, the doctor can't put down a code for a disease because there isn't one. What do they write on the chart?
And this is where the Z code becomes the star of the show. The screening itself is listed as the reason for the visit. The code basically just says, hey, this person is here for a preventative checkup. And that tells a completely different story than a code that says, this person is here because something is wrong. And this brings up a really crucial point. A screening is not the same thing as a follow-up. A screening is when you're looking for a disease in someone who seems perfectly healthy. A follow-up, though, that's for surveillance after a disease has already been treated, to make sure it hasn't come back. Two totally different scenarios, and you guessed it, two totally different kinds of codes.
All right, so let's keep building this patient story. Z-codes don't just capture why you're at the doctor today, they also capture what happened before. Your personal health history and even your family's are vital clues for your doctor. So your chart can actually have Z-codes that flag things like a personal history of a condition that's no longer an issue, or maybe a family history of something like heart disease, or even a known genetic risk for an illness. Now, none of these mean you're sick right now, but they are absolutely critical pieces of your overall health puzzle. And this is where you see just how powerful these codes can be. A Z-code for genetic susceptibility isn't just some note in a file. It can literally trigger major preventative action, like surgery to remove an organ to stop a disease from ever even getting a chance to start. I mean, that is proactive healthcare, all explained by one little Z-code. So, what happens when a diagnosis is finally made and the treatment starts? Well, our patient's coding journey just keeps going. It moves from diagnosis into recovery, and Z-codes are right there, every single step of the way. You can really break down the whole journey of care into these three phases. First, you've got the active treatment of the disease. But once that's done, you enter the worlds of aftercare and follow-up, and that is Z-code territory. So here's the key. Aftercare isn't about treating the disease anymore. That initial active treatment is finished. This part is all about the healing and recovery phase. So think of it as managing the results of the treatment, not the illness itself. For example, let's say a patient goes back to the doctor just to get a surgical dressing changed, or maybe some stitches taken out. They're not sick, right? They're just healing. The reason for that specific visit gets an aftercare Z code, something like Z48.02. It tells the story to the insurance company perfectly. Okay, so once the healing is pretty much done, then it's time for the follow-up. And this is different. This is all about surveillance. It's like being a watchguard. The patient has recovered, and now the doctor's just keeping an eye on things to make sure the problem doesn't pop up again. The patient isn't sick, they're just being monitored. But the story doesn't stop there. Z-codes go even further. They capture ongoing health statuses, and this is the part I find most surprising, they capture factors from your daily life that can have a huge impact on your health. For instance, if you're on a long-term medication, say like insulin or a blood thinner, there's a Z-code for that. It's called a status code. It doesn't diagnose anything in that moment, but it tells any doctor or nurse who looks at your chart, hey, just so you know, this person's health is influenced by this medication. You need to be aware of this. All right, but let's take this even further away from the doctor's office. What on earth could your housing situation possibly have to do with a code on your medical chart?
Well, the answer is a whole lot, actually.
This is where we get into the world of social determinants of health, or SDOH for short. It's this growing recognition in the healthcare world that things like your income, your education, your social support network, even where you live, all of that can be just as important to your health as your genes are.
And these factors are captured with Z codes. I mean, just think about how this changes everything. If a doctor knows their patient is experiencing homelessness or doesn't always have enough food, it completely changes how they might approach treatment. Knowing a patient lives alone might mean they need extra support after a procedure. These aren't medical problems in the traditional sense, but they are absolutely health problems.
So, after all of this, let's just zoom out for a second. We've got codes for screenings, for family history, for aftercare, and even for a person's social situation. Why is telling this complete story so incredibly important?
Well, the impact is huge. For you as a patient, it means better, more personalized care. For the healthcare system, it means more accurate billing and records. And for all of us as a society, collecting this data creates this incredibly rich picture for public health experts and researchers. It helps us understand what really makes a community healthy or sick.
So the next time you think about medical codes, I want you to remember this. They're not just cold, sterile labels for diseases. They are storytellers. They capture the full, complex human context of your health journey. A Z code on your chart means the system is capturing more than just a symptom. It's capturing a piece of your life.
And that really just leaves us with a final thought. These codes are just one part of this vast universe of information that makes up our health profiles. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other important stories are being told right there, hidden in your data?